Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Dr. Amir Rashidian. He is a chiropractor and expert in stress physiology. He's also an entrepreneur, a business consultant, an author, and a speaker. He is the author of 2 books on stress, the second one entitled Cracking the Stress Secret, How to Turn Pressure into Power. And it was an Amazon bestseller and a #1 new release in October of last year. Welcome, Dr. Amir. It is a pleasure to have you.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So please share with us in your own words. I know I did the introduction, but in your own words, who you are.
Well, bottom line, I help you be healthy and manage stress properly. And it's not about how much stress you have in your life. It's about how strong you are to handle that stress, because ultimately how healthy you are is determined by how much stress you can safely handle. So my focus has always been, let's help you become stronger and more resilient towards stress and adapt to that stress so that you can become better, handle things, and ultimately be happier and more successful too.
Yeah, totally. And what are some of the things, like how do you help people deal with stress?
You know, back in the day, years ago, all my patients would come to me and say, the reason I'm sick is because I have too much stress in my life. And I would always say, well, it's not the stress, because I can show you someone who has more stress in their life and they don't get sick. And there's people who have less stress and they are more sick. So you can't say it's the stress in your life, because the definition of stress is something we all have as a misconception. So I've studied the most successful people, the people who seem to handle everything really well, the people who accomplish tremendous amount of things in a short period of time and still stay healthy and well and happy. But they have a different definition of stress. They have a different relationship with stress, and they rarely ever focus on reducing the stress. So that's where you need to start. Is step number 1 is define stress, and that definition is that stress is a force that causes change in your life. It's like exercise. If I go to the gym and every time I go, I lift a little more weight, I get stronger. If I go to the gym and every time I go, I lift less weight and do less, I get weaker. So the more we focus on reducing stress, the weaker we become and the less stress we can safely handle. So step number 1 always is create that new relationship with stress, understanding that with the right focus, with the right attention, you can get stronger. Now, before we go into other steps, I think what you have to understand is that everything in life is 3-dimensional. You have 3 dimensions of stress, which are the same 3 dimensions as life, which are the same exact 3 dimensions as health. And those 3 dimensions are mental or psycho-emotional. Second one is biochemical, and third one is physical. And they come in any order, but they're equally as important. That's why someone will start exercising and they don't see any change in their body, because they didn't address the other 2 dimensions. Someone will start to focus on their psycho-emotional health, but they don't start eating better and they don't exercise and they don't get the results that they want. They go, it's not working. But if you improve each dimension by just a little bit, simultaneously, you will achieve fantastic results. Those results are called wellness. And that's another word. It's a buzzword. It's a marketing term. Nobody knows what that word wellness means. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the definition of wellness is that it is the degree to which health and vitality are experienced in those 3 dimensions of life. How healthy do you feel and how vital do you feel or are in each of those 3 dimensions? That's called wellness. So you have to improve 3 dimensions simultaneously. And really quick, each dimension has 2 sides to it. Like a coin, there's a heads and a tails, right? So when you look at the psycho-emotional dimension, one side is feed yourself with positivity, do things that strengthen you emotionally, but then you also have to remove the things that bring you down. like watching the news late at night right before you go to sleep, that makes your cortisol levels go up and it interferes with your sleep. Watch the news in the morning, not in the evening. That's one example. The second dimension, the biochemical dimension, you have to feed your body with deficiencies, right? If there's a deficiency of vitamin D, you need to feed that. If there's a deficiency of a chemical or an enzyme or a hormone, we need to address that. But also the other side of that coin is toxicity. You have to remove the toxins that are already built up in your body. The third dimension being physical, one side of that coin is exercise, but the opposite side of that is rest. If you're not balancing your exercise with proper rest so you can recover and regenerate properly, you're not going to make it. So 3 coins or 3 dimensions, 2 sides to each coin. Improve those, and you will definitely improve your ability to handle stress, get stronger, live longer, feel younger.
I totally agree with you, and I come from the same approach by combining physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And it's creating the habits in those different dimensions, like you said, habits that sustain us instead of drain us. Again, consuming the news at night, which is totally bad. Like, I don't know, when you were growing up, when we were little kids, our parents used to read us fairy tales to ease us into sleep and to create those beautiful images. What if, as adults, we read ourselves a beautiful fairy tale to create that imagery for ourselves instead of, just like you said, consuming the news? And the same with physical dimension and exercise. Our bodies were designed to move. And I think what we discovered during the pandemic, that a lot of times we find ourselves sitting for long periods of time. And our body is very intelligent by design. So if we tell our body it's not important for us to move, certain parts could atrophy. So it's important to practice that. So I totally agree with what you are saying and totally on board with your approach to life. And I think wellness is important. It's creating those habits all around ourselves in our lives that sustain us. So awesome. What kind of, and did you grow up with this kind of ideology or this kind of concept, or did you have to learn it from personal experience?
That's a good question. I'm still learning. I never stopped learning. And, which is why I wrote a second book, because after the first book, I realized there were certain things that were missing, and I learned more, and I thought, hey, we better write another book. So now I don't think I have to write another one, but, I bet you in a couple of years, I'll probably be thinking I should write another one. So we're always learning. They call it growing up because you grow. You grow mentally and emotionally and physically and chemically. So obviously every day, hopefully we're getting better. There's no standing still. You're either moving toward health and wellness, you're moving toward illness and sickness, and you're never standing still. So hopefully you're always moving forward. I grew up in Iran before the revolution. The life was amazing. We were doing very, very well. We traveled to Europe every summer. We spent at least a month, sometimes 3 months in the summers in Europe, traveling place to place. We were treated very, very well. If you were from Iran and you had an Iranian passport, they moved you to the front of the line, treated you like royalty, and gave you all kinds of special attention. Then after the revolution, we became, bad people. And so, obviously, people don't represent their government, but then we really couldn't travel that far. We couldn't go to certain countries anymore. Iran was not accepted. And there was, I remember being a child going through revolution. Then the war started, bombings, destruction, bullets flying through the streets because the POWs, there was this POW camp they built right across the street from my home. These prisoners of war would escape and try to hide in people's homes, and very scary times. And then we moved to America, and I think the scariest time of my life wasn't really the war or the revolution or the bombings. It was actually landing in Los Angeles, my mother and I, with 2 suitcases, less than $500 in our pockets, and nothing else. No home, no place to stay, don't know the language. That was the scariest time. But you know what? All of that turned me into who I am today. And thankfully, we got through, and now here we are. Things are really good now.
That's amazing. I love your story. What kind of advice would you give your younger self, that person who just came to this country?
I would always, I've always believed that, God is with us. And so it was always about that. I think if we walk through life with a little more faith, knowing that we are loved and cared for, and you know, there's a higher power looking out for us, I think we get through things a lot better. You know, there were times where I maybe was upset or angry and acted out on those things, and the outcome didn't change. In fact, it probably would have turned out better if I hadn't acted the way I did. You know, we can panic and get upset and throw tantrums, or we can just say, hey, I can't change this right now. I'm going to walk through it calmly. So I think that would be the advice is trust, one step in front of the other, keep moving forward. And the other thing is, you know, sometimes the difficult times are the times you miss. You know, there was something special about just having nothing, and life was simple. I don't know if that makes sense, but so when you're just getting started in life and there's nothing else, and all you have is it's me and my mother, that's it, nothing else. And hey, we got to make it, and not just worry about school. Little by little, you know, those early times, I would say, cherish it, enjoy it, and times will change. Nothing stays the same. That's the other bit of advice. Nothing stays the same.
Yes, you're so right. We constantly change, and seasons of life introduce us to different lessons. And I totally understand you saying even those difficult times when we didn't have anything, because as we evolve, as we grow, we have different kind of problems. So when you didn't have anything, you had one kind of problems, but it wasn't too many things to deal with, and it was all right. Now, years pass. Now you have changed yourself. You changed your beliefs and values, and the things that used to bother you before, now you probably laugh about them. They're like nothing for you, because we always get those different lessons and different problems that we get to solve, and that's how we grow and evolve to the next level. So totally agree with you. What is your superpower if you had to pick one?
Well, I think I'm good at teaching, and it serves me well with, you know, teaching my patients how to live a better life, and teaching my staff how to take good care of our patients, teaching our other doctors how to care for patients properly. I think that's probably one of my superpowers, if not the main one.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, teaching is important. Not everybody can teach. A lot of people have a lot of information, but you know, having that conscious relationship and being able to distill the idea to simple points and to bring people in, to get them inspired and evolve, I think that's an important superpower to have.
Yeah, you know, I would even say that every strength has a shadow and every weakness is a shield. Because you know, a weakness might be someone is shy, but then that saves them from a bad situation because they were too shy to do something. So I think our weaknesses benefit us just as much as our strengths do. And then our strengths can cast a shadow where we end up thinking about that strength in a way that makes us feel superior to someone, and then we close out what we could have received properly. So if I'm a great teacher, an example would be, I may not be open to listening to someone else who's also a great teacher who could be teaching me something. So we have to really watch for those.
Yeah, you're right. Everything kind of have two sides of the coin, and we have to be mindful to keep the balance and continue to be humble, no matter how old you are or how much you know. There is always more to learn, more to gain from one another. What kind of advice would you give to single parents on dealing with stress, or in general? Did you grow up in a single parent household?
Kind of. You know, my dad was in and out of the house, but for the most part, it was my mother and I. You know, I'd say 80% of the time, 90% of the time, was just my mother and I. So I think, you know, again, faith plays a big role in this. I'll tell you a really quick story. One day I was going through a tough time. I was a college student, was going through a tough time. And I'm just going to tell you the very end of the story because it's a long story. But I had decided I'm just going to put everything in God's hands and trust God. And And I was praying, and at the end of my prayer, I said, God, do you hear me every time I call out to you? And my thought process was, does he have a voicemail? There's got to be millions of people praying to God all at the same time. And how is it that he can hear everybody's prayer? Maybe he has angels that take messages for him. I don't know. How does this work? So my question is, do you hear me every time I call out to you? And immediately the phone rang, and it was my mother on the phone. My mother said, hey, I'm over at Nancy's. We're studying the Bible. And I called to see if you need anything. And I said, oh, no, sir, sorry. I said, I don't need anything. And then she said, but Nancy wants to talk to you. Now, Nancy was the person who would do Bible study with my mother weekly. And I never spoke to her. She had never spoken to me. But that day, she said she has to say something to me. So I said, fine. She gets on the phone, and she didn't say hello. All she said was, Amir, I need to tell you, every time you call out to God, he hears you. And that's all she said. And she hung up, and that's all she said. And it was immediately after I had asked the question, God, do you hear me every time I call out to you? So if you're a single parent, you have to understand, yes, that's your child. Those are your children, but they are God's children. And God loves them more than you do. As much as you love your children, God loves them more than you. So you have to understand that you will be given the strength, you will be given the resources, you will find a way. Just stay calm. Love is the most powerful thing. Although hate can destroy things in an instant, love takes a long time to rebuild. So be very, very careful. If you look at short-term power, hate, anger, those things are more destructive in the short term. You can destroy a relationship with one word. To rebuild it, it takes a lifetime. So be careful with those things. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be upset. Watch what you say. Watch what you do. It's hard. It's really hard, but hard is what makes you better. Hard is what hardens you in a good way. Now, you don't want to be hardened to a point where you don't experience love. That's not the kind of hard I'm talking about. You need to stay soft so you can receive love and give love, but take on the hard and expect it and live with it. Just like I always say, you got to accept the stress, invite the stress so it can make you a better person. Same thing. Be super careful. Do everything out of love. Forgiveness. I know, Irina, you talk about forgiveness all the time too. Forgive instantly. Forgive yourself too. You'll say something to your kids. Everything I said I wouldn't do when I have kids, I did. I said, I'm not going to yell at my kids. I yelled at them. I'm never going to say this to my child. I did it. Everything I promised I wouldn't do, I did. And then the things I said I would do, I had a hard time doing. So when the kid shows up in your life, you become a different person. So forgive yourself, have grace with yourself, and just take it day by day. Understand, expect everything's going to be okay. Pray a lot. Pray day and night, morning and night. Just pray and let God know that you believe in him. You understand his powers, his faith. He will take care of you, and you're just going to be okay. You have to believe that, because if you believe the opposite, you're destined for difficulty. If you believe everything's going to fall apart, everything's going to be bad, everything's going to be horrible, nothing's going to work out, my kids aren't going to behave, you expect that, you're just going to it's going to get worse. That doesn't bring you anything. But the minute you say, hey, I think things are going to be okay, I think I'm going to make it, now you have a little bit of hope, and you build on that hope, and you just have to hold on to that hope. And I mentioned anger. Anger is not necessarily a bad thing. Anger is actually just like stress. Stress can hurt you or make you stronger. Well, there's this thing called anger that can lead to bad behavior, but there's also righteous anger that makes you step out of a bad situation. So you can get angry at your situation and use that energy to say, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm going to change. I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to take charge of my emotions, my thoughts, my habits, my patterns, and I'm going to be that better person that I know I can be. Your hero is you in a few years. Who do you want to be? That's you. So think about who you want to be, what gifts, talents, abilities, and skills you want to have, and start developing those things and step into that great person that you already are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Powerful message. I totally agree with you. And thank you for bringing this up. What were some of the things that were working when you were growing up? What are some of the positive things that as a child of, in a single parent household, what was working for you?
Children are always happy. That's the nice thing. I think we can learn a lot from them. We use our imagination. I played soccer. We call it football. I played football every day, every morning. That was my thing. So I had my soccer ball in next to my bed when I would sleep at night. When I would get up in the morning, it was on my foot when I went to the bathroom, and then it was on my foot when I went to the dining room table to eat breakfast, and I dribbled it all the way out to the street where we played, soccer all day, every day. And kids are very resilient. Kids turn out okay. We think we're damaging them or scarring them, and we are to a degree, but those things aren't necessarily bad things. You get through tough times, then other tough times don't seem that bad anymore. When I'm sitting in the basement of a building and there's bombs falling and there's explosions all around you, and then you get a tax bill that for an amount of money that you don't have, you're like, oh, it's just another bomb. So yeah, it's okay. Yeah, those didn't kill me. This probably won't kill me. And you get through it. So positive things growing up. Iran was a beautiful place. We lived up north by the Caspian Sea, where it was like a vacation area, a lot of recreational facilities, until they turned the park into a prisoners of war camp. But even then, we just had fun. The beach was nearby. We had a beach house. The government took it over because when it became the Islamic Republic of Iran after the revolution, the law said you can't own two houses. So we lost our beach house after a couple of years after the revolution. But until then, we'd go stay at the beach house, play on the beach, fly kites, have ice cream. I mean, we had a great, great childhood. Everything was good.
Awesome. Are there any fun projects you're working on that you would like to share?
Well, right now I'm working on really promoting my book. I thought writing the book was going to be the hard part. But then once it was written, the hard part was editing it, because the attorneys with the publishers and everything, they have a lot of requests. And so all the research, the post writing edits that go in there are tremendous. I thought that was going to be the hard part. When the book came out, we hit the ground running. Lots of people bought the book. It was excellent. But we hit bestseller, #1 bestseller in 4 different categories, and #1 new release and all of that. But then I realized I have to keep marketing and promoting it. So that's really the project. The book is fairly new. This is it right here, called Cracking the Stress Secret: How to Turn Pressure into Power. I'm pretty passionate about it, because I think this will teach you how to handle stress properly, how to manage stress properly, how to not let stress make you sick. So that's my passion, my project right now. But it's been my project since my first book came out back in 2016. And I just think if we become a society that blames stress for everything, we'll end up achieving less, having less, and being less. It's who you are that determines how well what you do works. You have to become the kind of person who can handle the stress that's going to come your way as you set out on that journey to become somebody great. Nobody who became amazing, did great things, and had wonderful things in their life, none of them faced no stress. They all had obstacles and challenges that they had to overcome. The bigger the challenge, the tougher the journey, the sweeter the destination. So this is going to train you how to do that. This book is going to tell you how to train like a prize fighter. A fighter has to step in the ring. They have the time. They go, oh, September 28th, you're going to step in the ring, heavyweight fight for the championship. You have 6 months to train. And they start training. And they go to the gym and train. Well, you got to do the same thing. You want to be a great parent? Use the techniques in the book and train to be a great parent, like the champion does. Muhammad Ali said, it wasn't fighting that made me win. It was everything I did before the fight, the training, the running, the lifting weights, all the work I put into it. You win the fight before you step in the ring. Same with challenges in your life. You get sickness, you have an injury, you win against those as you train. You live a good, healthy life. You get injured, you're going to recover faster and better. You live a good, healthy life, you get sick, you'll bounce back better and faster. Focus on training for those challenges and don't get off course. Put your dream in your mind, keep your eyes on your dream, and keep working towards it.
I love it. It's the person who you are becoming through the journey of life, through those challenges, then makes you prepare for that performance, that fight, that great thing that a lot of times we don't see all that background work that happens. We see just that win that Muhammad Ali did, or that breakthrough, and we discount that work that happens behind the scenes. So very good point. I love it. And we will include all the links in the episode notes with a reference to your book as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
One last thing is that there's a big misconception about what chiropractic is. Most people today, and this didn't used to be the case before the 1980s, this wasn't the case, but today and since the 1980s, we believe chiropractors treat back pain, and it's not about back pain. In fact, the original textbook on chiropractic never mentioned back pain once, not even once. It had nothing to do with back pain or neck pain. The premise of chiropractic is that the human body is a self-healing organism. If you need an enzyme, you produce it. If you need a hormone, you produce that. If you need less of something, you reduce it. You produce cholesterol, you reduce cholesterol. All of that is monitored and controlled by the nervous system in the body, which is your brain. The brain is connected to every cell, every tissue, and every organ in your body through nerves. Those nerves need to be free from interference. If there's interference on those nerves, through the spine, you will have a suppressed immune system. You will have a slow digestive tract. You will have problems with your hormonal system. You may have problems with your musculoskeletal system. The job of the chiropractor is always only ever one thing: detect the interference, remove it so that the brain and body can connect better and communicate better. And all of a sudden, everything starts to work better. Chiropractic is like dentistry. You go to your chiropractor and you never stop. Now, I know people say, oh yeah, chiropractors always say you have to go for the rest of your life. 100% you have to go for the rest of your life. Don't you ever stop. It's like telling me, don't start going to the gym and exercising, because once you get fit and you get healthy, you have to keep going to the gym for the rest of your life. And don't start brushing your teeth either, because if you brush your teeth, you have to keep brushing for the rest of your life. Chiropractic is the same exact thing. You have to get checked. You don't know if something's out of alignment. You don't know if something's pressing on a nerve until it's too late. Well, if it's too late, now you need surgery. Now you need drugs. Now you need a lot of other therapies. But if you fix it before it becomes a serious permanent problem, you don't have those problems. You live longer and you feel younger.
I love it. And I think you just opened my mind a little bit about all this. I didn't know that either. And it makes me want to go do the checkup. And you're so right. We hear so much about a teeth appearance, and we discount our amazing body and all the system that needed to run smoothly and properly, and neurons and nervous system connecting to all the cells, so everything is working, because it's behind the scenes until, like you say, we have a problem. Then we start to think, oh, let me go address that. But it's so important in daily maintenance, weekly, monthly. So what is your recommended advice for the frequency of visits to the chiropractor? Or it depends on the person and severity of their situation?
Well, it all depends. So initially, when a patient comes in, we do a thorough analysis that includes computerized scans of the nervous system to see if the individual nerves are functioning properly. We do functional neurologic tests to see if the body is communicating with the brain properly, because it's a two-way communication. Not only does the brain send information out, it has to receive information properly. So we test both pathways to make sure that's happening correctly. And we measure your ability to tolerate stress. There's a test called heart rate variability, but the formula we use is very important because it'll tell me if your body acts like it's in fight or flight on a constant basis. And then we have to bring you back to balance. Then we take digital x-rays and measure and draw lines and analyze every segment in your spine to see if any one of them are misaligned. we match that with how the nerves were firing. If there's a misalignment here and that same nerve is acting funny, now we work on correcting it, re-x-ray, reanalyze with the scans, make sure it's corrected. Then we go to maintenance. Maintenance can be, if you do your home exercises correctly, you eat right, you think right, you may not need too many visits. If you don't, you may have to come in once a week. So it could be once a week, it could be once a month, it could be once every 3 months.
Thank you. Yeah, you so much behind it. I didn't know. Thank you. If people would like to connect or learn more about you, where would they go?
Well, our YouTube channel is Real Chiropractic, and our Facebook is Mid-Atlantic Clinic, and my personal website is drrashidian.com. Our office website is midatlanticclinic.com.
Awesome. And we'll include everything in episode notes. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, and I loved your story and the work you're doing, and you opened up my mind, at least, about the field of chiropractic and how important it is to have that maintenance routine. And dealing with stress, I think, is also very important, looking at all of our different states, physical, emotional, mental, and so on. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.